mean, we don't know who did this shooting, by the way, the Super Bowl shooting.
We have some idea.
What?
If it were a white man shooting, we'd know.
Well, we don't know, but they haven't.
That's how we know it's not a white man. I can tell you that much.
But you think they're repressing that reporting?
They wouldn't tell us about the transgender woman that shot up the Christian school for what, like a year? San Bernardino out here. Remember the crazy terrorist Muslims? That's when I first noticed, they're not telling us who it is. It's not a white male.
My God, it's full of...
Make you feel better about your sorry lives. And by all means, the haters, feel free to make funny jokes about how I live in my mom's basement. And my mom, may she rest in peace, brings me chicken tendies and chalky milk. Anyways, so this is going to be the new format going forward for the My God is Full of Honks. I've had a bit of time to think about it and practice a few things and see what's working and what's not. So I think we found a winning formula here, and we're going to continue this way until, I drop dead of a massive heart attack or, I find a better format to do these long form videos that are multi-topic. And I wanted to cover a couple, three issues that were in the news this week or last week. First, starting with the basically the shooting at the Kansas City Super Bowl parade. There was I saw that sequence of Ann Coulter just ripping to shreds the liberals on Bill Maher's show, who I used to like a lot. Thought Bill Maher was okay up until he developed unhinged Trump derangement syndrome. And I stopped watching him around 2015, 2016, when he would, automatically take the opposite side of whatever Trump said, which is just ridiculous. A grown man behaving in that way makes you believe one of two things: that either he's an unhinged loon, or B, just a puppet of the elites who manufactures consent for the liberal voter class. And so I just stopped watching him. I mean, I don't need you to take the exact opposite of what Trump says, Trump said, some countries are shithole countries. I think he was referring to Haiti, and then Trump Bill wore a shirt that said something to the effect, "It's not a shithole." It's like, come on, Bill. They're eating mud pancakes in Haiti. That's how much of a shithole it is. So you don't need to automatically take the opposite position of what Trump says. So that's when I lost all respect for him. I don't watch him anymore. He does have the odd line from time to time, but I'll make a video about that at a later date, explaining why I believe he's just a puppet. He's not really that unhinged. He's just a puppet. Anyways, let's go on with this video here.
Media who do not care about blacks killing blacks. And this is the one time where I think, you always hear, pretty white girl, oh, they'll cover that. No, the blacks killing blacks will not get covered by the media. That's a huge media problem. And you'll all laugh at me, but I'm going to say it because I'm right.
Very right.
Because of this
Far right.
is illegitimacy. All of these young men do not have fathers, and that is a huge, huge source of it. Anything that could be done to reduce the illegitimacy rate, particularly among the black community, it would be astronomical, the changes you'd see. Do you know, just one fact, if you take away the factor of illegitimacy, the difference in the black and the white crime rate disappears.
And Ann's not wrong here. There is a graph that I post from time to time, and I'm going to show it here, where it shows that non-marital birth rates in the United States between 1940 and 2014. Yeah, there we go. I don't know if you could see it. There you go. It's right there. So basically, I'm going to just zoom in so you can see it better. And you basically see that, even back in the day, the black, this is the black here, this line here, even the black non-marital birth rates back in, the 40s and 50s was about double what it was for whites and the average, the country as an average, although mind you, the country was a lot more whiter back then, right? So the black non-marital birth rate was like double what it was for whites back then. And as you can see, right around the 70s, when LBJ's War on Poverty was enacted, which was basically welfare, it just skyrocketed. Now, everybody's birth rates started, or non-marital birth rates started going up, but the blacks just like skyrocketed. They were up to like 70%, and they've been hovering there ever since. Now, it was on a downward trajectory between 2009 and 2014, but I don't think that's come down precipitously. And so you see the worst performing ethnicities on this chart, which would be Black, Latino, and Native American, all have the highest non-marital birth rates, are also the poorest, also have the largest gang affiliations and violent murders, like violent homicides, whereas Asians are down here at the bottom, and they are like the most successful people in America, which totally dispels that whole myth that America is a racist, white supremacist society. Because obviously, if Asians are, the most successful, they earn more, they're more successful, they attend higher education on larger percentage rates. It all means that it has nothing to do with race and everything to do with an intact family. And when you have an intact family, you have the mother and the father involved in the children's lives. And it's like for a single woman to raise a child or multiple children, it's very difficult. It's very difficult, especially with young boys in poor neighborhoods where there is, gangs that can basically act as as role models for young impressionable boys. How's a mother going to counteract that? It's impossible. That's why you need the father in the house. And Anne is absolutely right. So let's go on to see what she has to say.
You know,
It's an amazing fact.
it would be an amazing fact if it were true, but you know, but look,
Well, I mean, it is a big part of it.
listen, I've got two very small children. I've got my eye on this problem a lot. You know, I'm trying to raise, you know, black kids here in Los Angeles. I'm not a part of the pro-crime lobby.
The Super Bowl shooting.
We have some idea.
What?
If it were a white man shooting, we'd know.
Well, we.
And look how Van is smiling there. Look at that big ass smile he's got on his face there. He knows she's right. He knows she is right for sure. Like they all know. Like just like how you knew the Russiagate was a gigantic nothing burger. Remember when James what the hell is this? I'm blanking on his name now. James Lindsay, the guy from I'm having a senior moment, people. Let me take my brain meds so I can remember his name. The guy who oh, for fuck's sakes, seriously. Anyways, the guy who has OMG, O'Keefe, James O'Keefe. There we go. James O'Keefe did an expose on the Russiagate thing back in the day. He sent one of his undercover operatives over to CNN, and they got video of this douchebag piece of shit saying that the Russia conspiracy theory was a nothing burger. Right? He knew back then, just like how he knows now. What he's saying, what he just said, and what he just said is bullshit. And what Ann Coulter is saying is absolutely 100% true. They knew if it was a white man, his mugshot would be all over the news.
Don't know, but they haven't.
That's how we know it's not a white man. I can tell you that much.
Do you think they're repressing that reporting?
They wouldn't tell us about the transgender woman that shot up the Christian school for what, like a year? Oh, San Bernardino out here. Remember the crazy terrorist Muslims? That's when I first noticed, they're not telling us who it is. It's not a white male. The longer they go without telling you, it's not a white male.
Okay, well, for this one.
And look at Bill, just like being a complete useful idiot. Like, I mean, yeah, seriously, Bill, you're pretty smart on some issues, but on this issue, you're a complete idiot. Like, you're completely out of the loop. You don't know, like you're uninformed. You're informed about the tiniest little policy and how it affects millions and millions of people. But when it comes to this sort of thing, you're just unaware. Really, just a fucking useful. I swear to God, this guy isn't as stupid as he appears to be on TV. He's just a propagandist for the elites.
For right now, as of Friday night, February 16th,
We know.
We don't officially know. Okay, you have special powers.
Yeah, it's called deductive reasoning, you fucking useful idiot. Anyways, so I want to pause that, and I want to go to this next clip where the guy on the left is the Kansas City mayor who takes exception to a suspect shooting into a crowd, killing a mother of two, and wounding 20, mostly children, being called a thug.
He's going to join us later on in this program. After the shooting, he said, we can't let some thugs and criminals just take over and ruin what happened. I gather that's not quite your assessment of what happened that day.
I have respect for the governor. We get along well. I disagree strongly with how he would describe that situation. I certainly do think this was criminal activity. It was lawlessness, and I think that that's troubling. But thugs is a dog whistle.
So calling somebody a thug is more troubling than a mother of two being shot and killed in a crowd where 20 other people were shot, many of them who were children. I see where your priorities are. And now people wonder why I call my pages Clown World, because this is what we're living in. We're living in Clown World, where people take more umbrage with the fact that some guy called a thug, an accurate descriptor, by the way, than a mother of two being shot and killed along with 20 other people, most of whom were children. This is where we are.
In the most classic sense. And I have seen this dog whistle time and again. There's this kind of giant conservative theory on social media now that the reason that mugshots haven't been shown is because the purported defendants are black. And if it were a white defendant, we would have just shown them.
There is literally articles where certain authorities refuse to post mugshots because they are worried. Hold on one sec. All right, so we're back. Sorry about that. I had to cough. So anyways, there are actual authorities that are withholding surveillance videos of crime to avoid stereotyping certain diverse peoples. I mean, we didn't imagine this. This is really happening. So it's not a conspiracy theory that the governor said that, we're not releasing this data for racial reasons. It's just that simple. So this Kansas City mayor is basically
absolutely preposterous.
It's not preposterous. It's the facts. It's what's happening. There are authorities all over the United States and in Canada who are refusing to collect the data of the offenders because they are over a certain diverse benevolent people are being overrepresented in violent crimes that are being committed. So it's not, it has nothing to do with a dog whistle. These are facts. Facts are facts. They're not dog whistles. They're not coded language. It's a fact. Blacks tend to come from broken families. They commit the majority of the crimes. And it's like that everywhere you go. I posted a fact earlier this week last week during right around Valentine's Day, where the violent homicides that take place amongst partners, amongst man and woman, are double in Africa than they are in anywhere else. I mean, in some places, it's like a third of what African men do to African women. So you are just inherently violent. I hate to say this, but it's the facts. Facts are not dog whistles. Anyways, let's go on.
Protections to juveniles. Our city has a gun violence problem.
So where was the protection to Kyle Rittenhouse or the Nicholas Sandman kid who was fucking just standing there smirking? We don't buy that either. You outed out a fucking 9-year-old kid who was wearing red and black face paint at a Kansas City Chiefs game. Like, where was the protection for those 3 youngsters who are all way below 9 or 18 years of age? It's bullshit. Where was the outcry there? Where was the denunciation of racist dog whistles, as you like to call everything? So, I mean, it's all bullshit. You're protecting criminals because of their skin color. Anyways, let's go on to the next topic. Now, the next video I wanted to play was of the Trump verdict about his real estate dealings in New York. Not so much about the case itself, although I will, talk about it a little bit, but about the messaging, about how conservatives are idiots, how they basically they cede the linguistic terrain to leftists and leftist ideas by basically tacitly agreeing with the premise of the leftists, which you shouldn't do. You should question the premise and just resist their premise altogether. And here, this is what I wanted to talk about.
Well, let's bring in the chairman of O'Leary Ventures, Shark Tank judge Kevin O'Leary. Kevin, so good to see you this evening. I mean, Let me just jump right in here. Last time you and I spoke about the possibility of what the fine could be in this case, we now know what it is. It's more than $350 million. That's a huge financial hit. And I'm wondering, where is he going to get this money?
Actually, it's closer to $500 million with a 9% interest, assuming
True.
it'll take 18 to 2 years to actually settle this in an appeal, which I think it should be appealed. He'll work hard to raise it. I think he can do it. But I don't think this case is about Trump anymore at all, because you heard the governor of New York come out yesterday and say, look, everybody, don't be scared about doing business in New York. Because the only people we prosecute are people like Donald Trump who don't behave well. That didn't go over very well with the investment community, because we're all asking each other, who's next? This was a victimless crime. Nobody lost any money, and a judge out of nowhere put on a $350.
All right, so this is the problem I have with this. Him, and I've watched a bunch of videos on this topic. Both O'Leary and everybody else are saying this line. It's a victimless crime. I'm sorry, this isn't a crime. This is a technical regulation offense. This isn't a crime. If it was a crime, he would be in criminal courts facing criminal charges. This isn't a crime. This is a civil prosecution brought on by a political activist who ran on the promise that she would prosecute Trump if she was elected. If this was indeed a crime, he would be in a criminal court. This isn't a crime. But this fucking moron who ran for the Canadian Conservative leadership and lost because he's a fucking moron who wears 2 watches and is proud of it. This fucking moron keeps parroting the leftist fucking narrative. Oh, it's a victimless crime. It is the fucking crime. If it was a fucking crime, they would have fucking arrested him and he would have been on criminal charges. There were no criminal charges brought. Therefore, it's not a fucking crime. It's a technical regulation offense, basically, because he either overestimated the value of his properties in order to get better financing and shit like that. Let's let this fucking moron continue fucking digging a hole for himself.
$5 million penalty. I mean, who's next? So if you think
Kevin,
about
before I don't want to cut you off, but I hear about the so-called victimless crimes, but the laws on the books: falsification of business records in second degree, issuing false financial statements, insurance fraud, conspiracy, and all.
By the way, a lot of those, the stuff that he was found guilty of, it'll probably get thrown out on appeal because the judge was like batshit crazy. And basically, like, I haven't really followed it very closely, but based on what I've heard from Viva Frei and others, the judge is just like, there's been all sorts of procedural, unprecedented procedural, like improprieties, like that the judge has engaged in that are denying Trump and his lawyers from properly defending himself against these charges. So on appeal, all this shit's going to get thrown out. And it's just a fucking distraction in hopes of getting Trump disqualified or destroying his public image. But the reality is, it's not a crime. If it was a crime, he would have been charged criminally. And God damn you. Hold on 1 second.
All these different aspects of it, those are actual crimes. I take it your point is that these should not have been prosecuted.
Okay, so a lot of these charges, so these are the charges. So as you can see right here, it's a civil fraud case. It's not a criminal case. If Trump had indeed had committed a serious crime, he would have been charged criminally. This is civil. It doesn't have the same weight. There's no possibility of him going to prison for this. It's just like the guy in the insurrection in the the apparent insurrection case that was brought against him. He wasn't charged with leading an insurrection. These are all technicalities. It's all sleight of hand to make it look like he's guilty of something that he's not really guilty of. This isn't a criminal case. It's a civil case. It says right here, on Trump's New York civil fraud case. This is the government insinuating that he broke the law by insurance fraud. Well, in order for there to be insurance fraud, he should have defrauded an insurance company, which he didn't. Everybody was in good standing with him. Everybody got paid their loans back. No party was, no party had any sort of loss. So this is an activist prosecutor pulling shit out of her ass to basically try to prevent him from getting elected again. The only thing Trump is guilty of is winning an election against a Democrat. That's the only thing he's guilty of.
Prosecuted?
Well, my point is there's never been a case like this in 75 years. Everything you just listed off is done by every real estate developer everywhere on earth in every city. This has never, ever been prosecuted. But here's the real point that people in New York should concern themselves with. You can put your money anywhere. I'm a real estate developer. Do you think there's a chance I would ever take a chance on New York again? New York is turning itself into a flyover state. I have to build data centers now. I'm not going to go to New York. New York has power. It's got fiber optics. It's got Niagara Falls. But no, we're not even thinking about it. We're going to places that have the exact same thing, where we have rational governors that have never done this to investors. This is about New York and its people. If I were in New York today and I was living there, I would ask myself, maybe we should hire better management. Why is this happening to us? Why are we becoming a flyover state? Why are investors
Kevin,
concerned about putting their money there?
But shouldn't you ask that? Wouldn't those people also be saying, first of all, I do wonder how many people take issue with the idea that every investor is engaged in falsifying business records, and every investor is engaged.
I falsified business records. When I started my business in 1997, me and my two partners, we blew all our cash buying equipment and stuff, and we didn't have any operating capital left over. And so we heard of this government guaranteed small business loan. We fucking falsified our records up the fucking ass. Up the ass. We said we spent all kinds of money doing this and doing that, and we needed money to do this and do that and buy this equipment and that. It was all lies. We were going to use that money for operating expenses, basically to pay the rent and so on and so forth. And that particular government guaranteed small business loan, you weren't allowed to apply for funds that were going to be used as operating capital. Because the government wanted to be able to repossess chattels. Basically, they wanted, in case you defaulted on your loan, they wanted to be able to repossess chattels. But we had spent all our money on chattels, and now we needed money on operating funds, right? So we did it ass backwards. So we falsified the fuck out of those loans applications, and we got the loans. And yeah, technically you could call it fraud, but nobody was defrauded, because you know what? We paid that fucking money back. In 3 years, we paid back $100,000, and we were well on our way to becoming a fucking a business that had a good, healthy client list. We had steady income, and everything was honky-dory. And then we were able to borrow more money and more money and more money and so on and so forth. And so that you could call was technically fraud, but it wasn't really fraud because we didn't defraud anybody. We paid the fucking money back. Everybody commits fucking fraud. You're a fucking sucker. Listen, if you don't have the fucking balls to commit fraud, to fucking to cut corners, you're not a business person. You will never be a business person. You will be somebody who punches the time card all your life. You'll be a worker bee. And there's some people who aren't cut out for that. What I'm saying is it takes a certain personality type to start a business, to take the fucking risk takers, to take the risk to start, to bet it all on yourself and open a business. So if you don't have the balls to commit fraud, you're probably not going to start a fucking business. So the majority, he's absolutely right. The majority of business owners, entrepreneurs who took a fucking risk on themselves are committing fraud. but it's done with good intent. It's not done in the aims to defraud people or just steal from people. Yeah, there's a ton of people who do that shit too, but those guys are criminals. That's all they do. Those are the types of guys who take a deposit on starting a construction job and then never show up to finish the job. Those guys are fucking criminals. Entrepreneurs, they are risk takers. So yeah, we will commit fraud in aims for a final purpose. Yeah, absolutely. But it's done with good intentions, and most of the times they pay their loans back.
Been accused of Donald Trump and the Trump organization, because there's probably a lot who are saying to themselves, I've never falsified my business records. I know what a square foot looks like. I know what I can ask for and what.
That's bullshit. Everybody does that. If you go to sell your car, right, you're going to think it's worth X amount of dollars, where the guy who's going to buy it from you is going to say, no, it's not worth. You're overestimating its value. That's not a crime. That's trying to maximize your opportunity to sell something, right? So that's not criminal at all. It's just bullshit.
I have the money to support. So I wonder to what extent that really is true. But on the second point, wouldn't there be many companies who would not want to do business or loan money to people like yourself or investors if they know that they can get away with fraud and there's no recourse to protect them?
There is recourse, but fraud wasn't committed here. He didn't burn the fucking building down and then get an overinflated value for the property. He paid the fucking loan back. No crime was committed.
Excuse me, what fraud? This is not about Trump anymore. When you get a developer that builds a building and he says it's worth $400 million and he wants to borrow $200 million from a bank, which happens every day, everywhere on earth, including every American city, every developer is an entrepreneur. They shine the light on their building and they say it's worth 400. The bank does its own due diligence, as was done in this case, because they're very good at it. The banks are very good, and they say, no, it's worth 300. We're only going to loan you 150 million. That haggling has gone on for decades. That's how it works. And then in this case, even the bank that was supposedly defrauded testified and said, we didn't lose anything. We want to do business with this guy again. We'd like to, but the judge said, no. Let's penalize this developer for $355 million. And if we're going to do that, let's penalize all the developers all across America. They've all done the same thing. All of them should go to jail, and we should stop building buildings. That's what the message is from New York. Even the governor herself is concerned about what this looks like to investors all around the world. It's not just U.S. domestic. All around the world, people are talking about what happened here. You really think people want to invest money in New York after this? How about we go
Well, nobody's going to invest in New York, and nobody's going to invest in California because they're shitholes run by fucking demented ideologues, and that's why people are fleeing both those states. It's the same reason why Louis Rossmann fled New York and moved to Texas, because he was being hounded by New York City for they put liens on his business. Check out Louis Rossmann. If you want to get a laugh, he's got a great YouTube channel. It's I think it's Rossmann Repair Group or Louis Rossmann. Just do a search for that. He's basically this guy looks like a raccoon. He's got these dark circles in his eyes. He's a funny guy. He does all sorts of videos about right to repair and how corporations are basically douchebags. But he spent years highlighting the downfall of New York, its authoritarian practices, putting liens on his business for fines he didn't owe, for WSIB payments that he didn't owe. It's just nonsense. And that's why people, and this guy, even though he's a clown who wears 2 watches, here, watch this. Watch this. Look at this fucking clown.
2 of them right here. I'd rather buy a watch.
He's wearing 2 watches and he's proud of it, like a fucking moron. This is what the Canadian Conservative Party puts up to Canadian conservatives and moderate liberals like myself to vote for. Idiots like this fucking guy who wears 2 watches. Anyway, so New York California, they're soon going to be shithole states if they aren't already. And let's just see how bad this is blown up in the face of New York with this article here from The Guardian. New York governor seeks to quell business owners' fears after Trump ruling. Kathy Hochul says law-abiding business people have nothing to worry about. Law-abiding. Well, Trump was law-abiding. He didn't break any laws. He may have fudged his he may have cut corners on his filings and how he filed, but those are just technical rule breaking. That isn't a law. That's not breaking the law. If he had broken the law, they would have brought criminal charges on him. But the reason why they didn't bring criminal charges on him is because in the criminal court, there's a higher bar. Same reason why when they couldn't convict O.J. Simpson, they sued him in civil court, and they were able to win in civil court because the bar is lower. It's set lower in civil court, right? So it was easier to convict them there. And that's why they didn't bring civil charges against Trump. And that's why this is the problem I have with these conservative commentators. They don't mention this shit. They don't mention it. It's a clown show. They parrot. They accept the premise of the left as opposed to fighting the premise of the left. The premise is that a law was broken. There was no law broken. It's not a victimless crime because there was no crime. Anyways, let's go back to this article. So, New York governor has told business owners in her state that there's nothing to worry about after. Well, if she has to say this, then obviously people are worried. You don't go and say, "Oh, there's nothing to worry about," if people are not worried. After Trump was fined $355 million and temporarily banned from engaging in commerce in the state and lost a civil fraud trial. Civil fraud trial. It's not criminal fraud, it's civil fraud. In an interview in the New York radio show Katz Roundtable with the supermarket billionaire John I'm Greek and I can't pronounce this. Katzimatidis, Kathy Hochul sought to quell fears in some quarters that penalties handed to Trump for engaging in fraudulent business practices could chill the state's commercial climate. It already has. If you're chasing it, it already has. Asked if business people should be worried that if the prosecutors could do that to a former president, they can do it to anybody else. Well, you see, there's a thing, right? The only reason why they're doing it to Trump is because he beat a Democrat in an election. That's the only crime that Trump committed. They could do that to anybody. Hochul said law-abiding and rule-following New Yorkers. See, that's the only thing he did. He didn't follow the rules. And who are business people have nothing to worry about, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, basically, it's a political prosecution. And this is the problem I have with conservatives is they cave in, they accede to the perspective of the leftists instead of saying, no, I do not agree with your premise. Your premise is faulty, and here's how. They just give in, and they're automatically fighting from a negative position, right? You can't do that. You can't cede the linguistic terrain to these people. When they're talking about, like they often like to say, well, the trans issue for kids is about healthcare, and we care about these kids. You don't agree with that premise. What you have to do is you got to say mutilating, sterilizing children too young to know any better is not healthcare, is not looking out for their best interests, right? And with that tactic, you're knocking down. See, they'll cloak themselves in virtue. They'll cloak themselves in empathy and compassion. And if you accede to that, if you basically acquiesce to their position, you've already lost. You can't allow them to cloak themselves in virtue and righteousness and compassion and empathy, because you're already fighting from you're ceding the high ground to them. You got to combat their premise. You can't allow them to put a premise out there and fight from the premise that they're putting out. You have to knock their premise down. You have to tell them that their premise is wrong and explain to them how they're a bunch of fucking sociopaths, right? And basically, the woman, this woman who persecuted Trump is a fucking sociopath. She's a political opportunist. Anyways, you've heard enough of me fucking rant and rave. I'm about to have a massive stroke because my blood pressure is through the roof. But I'm glad I've gotten this off my chest. If you like this stream, please like and share or comment. Let me know what you liked, what you didn't like. If the sound volume, the sound levels are shit. If the sound levels are good. If the presentation was good. If my presentation speed was too fast or too slow. Just let me know your thoughts, and I will work on getting better. I'd like to do more and more of these and make this a career, so that way I can come to you every day and you can hear the soothing sounds of me barking into my microphone. Anyways, I hope you enjoy your hump day. Only 2 more days till the weekend. Thanks for watching. Have a great evening.